What? What's this? During the presentation of a project my boss and I worked on together, an unexpected incident occurred. My boss's PC got infected with a virus. The screen went black, and a random string of incomprehensible characters appeared. The participants in the presentation frowned. A virus infection? This is a nightmare incident. What if there's been a data breach? But I had something in mind. F. Do you still say that after seeing this? Shut it down immediately. This is no time for a presentation. I glanced at the screen over my boss's shoulder. Can you let me handle this? What? What do you mean? As I operated the PC, murmurs spread around us. Who is he? That's right. My true identity is, my name is Robert Taylor. I'm 33 years old, a businessman. When I mention the name of the company I work for, people are surprised, envious, and then even more surprised when they match it with my last name. The company is called Taylor Electric. Yes, it's run by my father. I've been the president's son since I was born. In elementary school, in middle school, always the president's son. People might think I've had an easy life. But life isn't that simple. Just because my parent is capable doesn't mean I have the same abilities. Hey, Robert, got a minute? Of course you do, right? My colleague, Richard, drops a pile of documents on my desk. As he slaps the stack, which is as high as people's faces, he gives me instructions. Scan all of this and send me the organized data. Sure. Okay. Judging by the amount of documents, this will take a lot of time. It's a simple task, but it will take half a day. The reason why, even after 10 years at the company, my colleague assigns me such administrative tasks is just one. I am a window side employee. Robert, you don't have much else to do, right? No, let me rephrase that. You can't do much else, right? Unlike me. Richard, who mocks me, not only graduated from a top university, but also consistently leads in performance. He is truly what you would call an elite, always at the forefront, leveraging his knowledge and experience to excel in his work. I used to admire his intelligence and demeanor when we were new employees. Seriously, I'm jealous that you get paid for such an easy job. In the past few years, he's thrown snide remarks at me every time we meet. Indeed, the difference in our workloads is like night and day. If you weren't the president's son, you'd have been fired long ago. Life is so unfair, being born into different circumstances. He says that, but I can tell he thinks the opposite inside. No matter how privileged your upbringing, if you lack ability, you only suffer from the gap. Conversely, if you have talent and knowledge, you can rise to any position you desire. Richard recently got promoted and is on a roll. Meanwhile, I'm a useless window side employee, just as Richard said. My father can't fire me because I'm his son. It would hurt his pride to fire his own son. Things can't stay like this. But thinking that I'd just end up in another window side position if I moved to other companies left me paralyzed. One day, a woman named Margaret Brown was transferred from a branch office. I heard she's also 33, but she's already a manager and is working at the headquarters as part of her training to become a director. She's had a remarkable career path, more of an elite than Richard. Seeing peers my age succeed only fuels my inferiority complex. I would like to work hard too. I would like to achieve results. I've been given many chances, but none have turned out well. Eventually, I failed at everything. People around me started thinking it was better if I didn't work at all, and that's how I ended up in a window side seat. Margaret being a candidate for director at her age is impressive. I heard she was the youngest ever to become a manager. I could hear the whispers of my colleagues near my desk. They looked at Margaret, who was welcomed by the top executives at the headquarters from a distance. Wow, she's competent and beautiful too. I also heard Richard's voice nearby. It seemed he was talking about Margaret like the others. Given his pride, I wondered if he resented someone more promising than himself, but his thoughts were different from what I expected. Don't you think a woman like her suits me? I see. That's how he looked at her. I thought, who does he think he is? But if he was being nice, that was fine. As long as he didn't start fights with her like he did with me, it was no problem. I was just concerned that the office atmosphere wouldn't get worse. However, Margaret and I ended up interacting more than I expected. Robert, could you look into the patent for this manufacturing method? Also, the documents you prepared yesterday were easy to read. Thanks. Can I ask you to do it again? Sure. Yes. Oh, you don't need to be so formal. We're the same age. But you're my boss. We started the same year, right? So we're colleagues. No more formal language from now on. With that, Margaret left quickly. I was left there stunned. Indeed, when she first arrived, the other managers and directors told her, "You can use Robert however you like." I greeted her, knowing my role was like a gopher, and from the very next day, she began assigning me various tasks, not just simple chores, but direct support for her work as well. I was bewildered, wondering if it was okay for me to handle it, but I couldn't refuse when asked. Eventually, she even invited me to have lunch. Did I do something to make her like me, or is she just trying to get close to her coworkers quickly? I couldn't figure out her true intentions. In any case, she didn't seem to be trying to befriend just anyone. After all, Richard, who had said he was aiming for Margaret, hadn't even exchanged contact information with her yet. Why does Margaret like Robert so much? I overheard Richard saying resentfully as I passed by the meeting room. Well, maybe he's just more useful, someone replied. Even with other employees trying to calm him down, Richard's frustration didn't subside. I'm clearly more competent, but when I offered to help, she said she'd ask Robert instead. Why is it? As per precedent instruction? I don't think that's it, someone said. I didn't understand why Margaret relied on me either. Why would she entrust important tasks to a Windows side employee? One day, while I was pondering whether to ask her the reason, Margaret, who seemed to be taking a long time with her work, asked for my support. The task itself was supposed to be simple, but the new system we were using slowed things down since we weren't familiar with it. Before I knew it, it was past 10 p.m. It's done. Me too. Really, thank you. It wouldn't have been finished without you. It was the right decision to involve you. Anyone could have done this, really. Everyone else was struggling with the new system, but not you. Great Robert. Great Robert. Does she expect a lot from me? Maybe she's overestimating me. Hey, let me treat you as a thank you. It's Friday after all, right? It's really not necessary. Don't worry about it. Oh, you're so uptight. It's fine. There's a place I want to go, and I'd actually prefer your company. Okay, if that's the case, I'll take you up on your offer. Great. I was surprised to see the usually composed career woman, Margaret, expressing such acute excitement. She always seemed strict with herself and others, but she had a surprisingly feminine side. By the way, where are we going? I asked. Margaret was humming a tune while getting ready to leave. She winked at me in response to my question. A special place. What? Just wait and see. Her ambiguous reply made my heart race unnaturally. The place she brought me to was a hot spring facility. There were other adults coming straight from work like us, as well as families. There was a dining area, but it wasn't a large facility. More like a hidden gem known only to a few. This is my favorite spot. I found it right after moving here, and I always come here when I'm tired, she explained happily while checking in. It's been a long time since I've been to a hot spring. I started to feel excited too. We agreed to meet in the lobby in an hour and a half, and I went to the men's bath. From the outside, the building looked small, but inside, it was surprisingly spacious with a wide variety of hot springs. My shoulders, stiff from sitting at a computer all day, began to relax in the soothing water. I enjoyed the carbonated bath and alternated between the sauna and the cold bath. I savored the outdoor bath, gazing up at the night sky. Though only a few stars were visible due to the city lights, I still felt my heart being healed. Lowering my gaze, I noticed a door at the corner of the outdoor bath area with a sign saying, "Natural Hot Spring Mixed Gender Cypress Bath Ahead." A cypress bath? I wanted to try it, but the mixed gender part made me hesitate. I had no improper intentions and just wanted to enjoy the bath, but I had never been to a mixed gender bath before and didn't have the confidence to enter boldly. Eventually, the allure of the cypress bath won me over, and I opened the door, gathering my courage. I found no one there. There was a cypress bath filled with steam. Right. Not everyone would come here. I worried for nothing, I thought. I stepped into the mixed gender bath. The scent of cypress enveloped my body, feeling pleasant while enjoying the bath in the night breeze. Then the door on the women's side opened. I instinctively turned around. It was Margaret. Margaret, is that you? Robert? I couldn't believe Margaret came to the mixed gender bath. It's awkward enough with strangers, but it's especially uncomfortable with her. Okay, I am leaving, I said hurriedly and tried to get back to the men's side. But as I was stepping out, she grabbed my arm. Wait, hold on. What? You were going to leave just because of me, right? That's a waste. This is my favorite hot spring, and I want you to enjoy it. Margaret was properly wrapped in a towel, so of course, nothing was visible. Still, sharing a mixed bath with a coworker seemed wrong. Noticing my discomfort, Margaret spoke cheerfully, feeling awkward. Don't worry, my eyesight is poor, so I can't see much anyway. Even if Margaret couldn't see, I had perfect 20/20 vision. But it felt rude not to enjoy the bath she recommended, so I returned to the tub. Margaret also got in, sitting next to me. There was only a person-size gap between us. A slight stretch of my hand could reach her. This fact made me uneasy. Does Margaret not find this situation awkward? Her indifference felt strange too. How's the water? It's perfect. The breeze feels nice. The aroma is wonderful, very relaxing. Glad to hear that. Internally, I was far from relaxed, but I couldn't admit that. I focused solely on enjoying the bath. I tried my best not to look at Margaret's body. After getting out of the bath, I waited in the lobby, and she soon joined me. Sorry to keep you waiting. Margaret was wearing glasses. Glasses? Oh, I told you my eyesight is bad, right? I usually wear contacts. I took them out for the bath, so now I'm wearing glasses. Do they look strange? No, not at all. I was just surprised. Actually, there was more to it. I felt like I had seen Margaret with glasses somewhere before, and not just once or twice, even though it should have been my first time seeing her like this. Hey, should we get something to eat? You must be starving. Of course. Let's do that. We ordered whatever we liked at the restaurant inside the hot spring facility. We also ordered beer. At first, the conversation was lighthearted and friendly, but then Margaret's expression suddenly turned serious. Is there something bothering you, Robert? Why are you in such a position? You're smart, have strong opinions, so why is there a reason? Smart? Why does she think that? Why do you think so highly of me? Do you know something about me? Well, I saw your name in middle school exams. You were always at the top for 3 years. They said your IQ was 150. I see. You remember that well. Robert is a unique name, so it stuck with me. Got it. My dad's a fan of Robert Downey Jr. He had high hopes that I'd live up to the name. I was good at studying back then, but it's not uncommon for childhood success to fade, right? I'm the same. I was only brilliant back then. I was indeed expected to do great things, and I'd met those expectations for a while, but things didn't go well in the long run. I couldn't become the son my parents envisioned, as you can see. So people talk about how I got my job through connections. I said this with a hint of sarcasm, and Margaret slammed her fist on the table. That's not true. What's wrong? Margaret's eyes were intense. Could it be that she's not good with beer? Robert, you're really capable. You just haven't had the right environment to show it. But with the project I'm working on, I think you can reclaim your glory. Wait, Margaret, what are you talking about? Let's make the president recognize you. It's wrong for him to force his expectations on you. We need to show him that there's a place where you can truly shine. With that, she suddenly slumped onto the table. Margaret, I thought she might be feeling ill, but it seemed she had just fallen asleep drunk. I had no idea she was this weak with alcohol. What should I do? I didn't know where Margaret lived, and carrying her to a taxi would be tough. Then I noticed a poster on the wall. Apparently, this hot spring facility also offered lodging. I quickly went to the front desk and booked a room. I managed to wake Margaret enough to support her to the room. Seeing her sleep peacefully on the bed, I finally felt the tension leave my shoulders. At the same time, I realized the fact that I was in a bedroom with a woman. We weren't in that kind of relationship, so maybe I should just go home. But leaving her alone while she was still not fully sober didn't seem right, so I decided to stay too. The next morning, when Margaret woke up and remembered everything, she blushed and apologized profusely. Her reaction was so amusing that I couldn't help but laugh. Since then, I felt our relationship had become even closer. A few days later, I was working on a proposal at Margaret's request. Her project involved developing several new models of washing machines. She said she wanted to include one of my ideas. Developing new products was a major project. Needless to say, the fact that I, a Windows side employee, was involved made other employees look puzzled. I still didn't understand why she relied on me, but I knew she wasn't playing games with me. Determined to meet her expectations, I spent a week working tirelessly at the office. However, this won't work. When I brought the proposal to the president, he glanced at it briefly before handing it back. What? Both Margaret and I were stunned. The proposal focused on simplifying the washing machine courses, which many elderly and male users found cumbersome and complex. In short, it suggested making the system simpler and incorporating a touch panel for easier operation. I thought it incorporated past feedback and current needs without duplicating previous products, but it didn't resonate with the president. The president, who was also my father, looked back and forth between Margaret and me and asked, "Who came up with this idea?" I did. When I raised my hand, he gave me a cold stare. I thought so. It lacks innovation. It's just a patchwork of previous proposals, my father said. He's always been strict with me, even though I'm used to it. It still stings. Noted. Apologies, your thinking is too naive. What have you learned working at this company, Margaret? You should have stopped this kind of proposal at your level. My father continued, expressing his dissatisfaction with me without listening to her. Honestly, you were a prideful son. Well, that ended in middle school. When my father looked at me and sneered, it was clear he considered me a disappointment. Going to a third-rate university, a guy who can't meet his parents' expectations in college won't succeed at work. Is that something you should say to your son, or rather to your employee? I had been quietly listening, but Margaret stepped forward. My father, clearly not expecting to be interrupted, was stunned. He is an admirable person now that he's an adult. Does his academic background really matter? A prideful child, just someone who obeys their parents. That's outdated thinking. Margaret said, her voice firm and disappointed. It's disappointing to hear such words from someone like you, President, Margaret added, pulling me by the arm and heading for the exit of the president's office. I heard a wait from behind, but Margaret ignored it and left. Are you okay? Margaret asked once we were out. Staying in front of him would have been a waste of time listening to pointless talk. But if you upset the president, it might put you in a difficult position. You're worried about me, I said with a smile. Thanks, but he was the one who was rude first. If he tries to cause trouble, I'll repeat our conversation in front of everyone. More importantly, Margaret took the proposal from my hand, flipping through it. She seemed to be thinking deeply. Then she spoke brightly. Let's improve the proposal. We'll make the president eat his words and beg. Please, let us use Robert's idea. Her playful tone made me smile. Margaret was always on my side. But why? Margaret, why do you think so highly of me? Everyone else sees me as a burden. Do you see yourself as a burden, Robert? Well, things never go well, so I guess that's how it is, I replied, shrugging. When I was a child, I was overweight and called fat and ugly, Margaret said. Really? Neither of those words fit the person she is now, I said, a bit surprised. Yes, I was bullied a lot, but I changed thanks to someone. I wanted to be recognized by that person, so I worked hard on my appearance and my studies. After that, no one mocked me anymore. Who could have had such an impact on you as a child? I wondered. I know people can change, so I want you to try too, Robert. For me, Margaret said. Robert, you don't have confidence in yourself, do you? Maybe you're unconsciously holding back your true potential. That might be it. I know you're really smart and capable. What happened? Margaret asked. I explained. My father, as you know, is the president. Since I was young, he always told me to become a respectable adult so I could take over the company one day. I studied hard and got top grades in school. Then he put me in a prep school saying I needed to be the best in the country. After that, it was go to a prestigious university. His expectations were endless. I kept wondering how far I had to go to satisfy him, and one day I just got tired of it all. I couldn't meet his expectations anymore. I see. You can't show your abilities because it's hard to live up to those expectations. Deep down, you're holding yourself back. Maybe that's it, Margaret said. That's why I don't want to pressure you in the same way. Do you have anything you like or are good at? Not something your parents told you to do, but something you did on your own. Well, I like working with PC. At first, I played games to escape my parents' pressure, but then I got interested in programming. I even made some apps for fun, I said, thinking about how much I enjoy working on the computer. Suddenly, Margaret grabbed both of my hands. That's it. Let's use that. You mean programming? I asked, confused. Yes. Remember when you stayed late with me the other day? We used a complex system, but you handled it effortlessly. It's the perfect job for you, Margaret said, getting excited. Wait a minute. My parents know I do programming, but they said it's useless since I'm not professional and that my skills are mediocre. Are your parents experts in programming? No. Then their opinion means nothing. It's a waste of your talent. Let's prove them wrong, Margaret said. But I don't want to pressure you. Do you dislike this idea? Margaret asked. No, I don't. I appreciate you thinking about it, but I lack confidence. I see, but it's okay to fail. Everyone fails many times before they succeed, Margaret said with a reassuring smile. Hey, can you teach me about programming? I want to work on it. Together? Sure, I got it. From then on, we continuously improved the proposal. I listed out what I could do and what I might be able to do with programming, comparing it with past projects and user comments. We decided to develop a tool where an app would verbally guide users through operating the washing machine. The app would inform users of the necessary amount of detergent just by them putting in the laundry. If this worked well, it could be applied to other appliances too. Making machines more convenient is good, but it's meaningless if people don't know how to use them. Our job is to help people live more comfortably. The deadline for developing the prototype was a week away. This time, we would present it in front of everyone. I wanted as many people as possible, not just the president, to evaluate it. It was nerve-wracking, but it would lead to growth. Margaret and I worked overtime every day to achieve results. One day, it was past 9:00 p.m. I got up to go to the restroom. As I walked down the hallway, someone grabbed my shoulder. It was Richard, looking extremely annoyed. Hey, working late again? Do you really think it's worth it? Well, I have work to do. Richard should have gone home long ago. Could he have stayed just to make snide comments to me? I tried to give minimal responses to avoid provoking him, but he didn't seem to care. He didn't hide his irritation and raised his voice. You're so full of yourself, acting like you're actually doing something useful. No one cares about your hard work. He had no right to say that without knowing how hard I was working. But perhaps he couldn't be blamed for not knowing the current me, so I responded firmly. I'm not the same person I used to be. I don't want to be stuck doing menial tasks just because I'm a Windows side employee. Okay, you're just riding high because Margaret likes you. You and Margaret will regret trying to achieve something at my expense. I won't regret it. Even if we don't succeed, we can learn from it. That's if you don't get fired. Richard scowled as he walked away. It seemed he had stayed just to pick a fight with me. To him, my efforts must seem reckless, but as I had declared to him earlier, I'm not the same person anymore. I won't be distracted by others' mockery. I'll believe in myself and Margaret and keep pushing forward. A few days passed, and the day of the presentation came. The meeting room was filled with the president and other executives. I couldn't help but feel nervous. But if we were recognized here, our efforts would surely pay off. No matter the outcome, if we fall, we can rise again. Let's give it our all. Margaret patted my back. I nodded and stepped forward. For this presentation, Margaret would be presenting, and I would be supporting her. I opened the computer and projected the presentation materials onto the large monitor in the conference room. But as soon as the materials appeared, the screen turned bright red. What's this? Margaret's eyes widened as she frantically typed on the keyboard. The screen then went black, displaying a random string of incomprehensible characters. This was not presentation material, nor was it part of the plan. It was clearly a bug, and from the looks of it, caused by a virus. Could this be a virus infection? Margaret, what is this? Margaret's direct manager frowned. A virus infection? This is a nightmarish incident. What if there's been a data breach? I don't know how this happened. Do you still say that after seeing this? Shut the laptop down immediately. This was no time for a presentation. I leaned over to look at the laptop screen beside Margaret. Margaret, it's okay. What? What do you mean? It's just a simple virus that messes things up a bit. I can remove it quickly. It's not a large-scale issue, nor is it the kind that sends data somewhere malicious. Robert, can you fix it? I see this kind of thing often. Give me 2 to 3 minutes, and I can handle it. I started working on Margaret's laptop. My actions were displayed on the large screen. Everyone was watching, but time was of the essence, so I kept working. A bit earlier than expected, the laptop was restored. It's all good now. It's really fixed. Robert, you're amazing. Margaret quickly rebooted the laptop. Nearby employees, who had been watching, looked at each other in astonishment. Did you see that? Incredible. I had no idea Robert had such skills. Isn't he more efficient than the IT department? We've been underutilizing him. Once the materials were displayed, the praise subsided. My apologies for the interruption earlier. Let's start our presentation. Regaining her composure, Margaret began the presentation with precision, using the demo app I created. Everyone expressed amazement. To conclude, she said, as you saw earlier, Robert, the creator of this idea, is proficient in programming. Developing the app in-house will be more cost-effective than outsourcing it. Feeling like our earlier mishap turned out to be a blessing in disguise, I smiled back as Margaret winked at me. When the presentation ended, applause erupted from all around. It seemed we were successful. Comments like this meet the needs perfectly, and I didn't know Robert had such skills. Margaret and I exchanged looks, confident in our presentation's success. Wait a minute. Then Richard raised his hand and stood up. Everyone's eyes turned to him. Are you really going to trust someone so mediocre? This reeks of favoritism because of his parentage. Are you all just trying to please the president? Richard wore a malicious smile, clearly unable to tolerate my success. However, the president shook his head at Richard's accusation. I have never treated Robert as my son within this company. I believe his past treatment here proves that. I didn't realize he had mastered programming to this extent. I never thought he could create an app for our products or handle a virus so efficiently. Mr. President, I've always been harsher on Robert precisely because he is my son. I labeled him a failure, someone not worth my expectations because he didn't grow as I wanted. I said terrible things both to my employees and my family. I take it all back. I couldn't believe my father was saying this, but the man standing before me, looking me straight in the eye, was the real deal. Margaret once told me that as adults, academic background no longer matters. She made me realize that the knowledge and skills acquired through life hold more value than academic achievements. I'm sorry for what I said. I'm glad you understand now. If your project can overturn your previous evaluations, it will undoubtedly become our flagship product. Of course, this has nothing to do with you being my son. I have assessed your proposal purely on its merits and the feasibility of its implementation. Your persistence and effort despite the environment and criticisms are commendable. Thank you so much. I showed the courtesy deeply. Hiding my eyes, tears welled up unexpectedly. Well done, Robert. Margaret, thank you. Our proposal was to be seriously considered. With the positive reception of my work, Richard was left speechless. However, I had something to ask him after work. I called Richard aside about the virus on Margaret's laptop. During the presentation, I found your ID while fixing it. Richard's face turned pale at my words. Yes, it was Richard who planted the virus. What are you talking about? Stop making baseless accusations. I can restore the virus so I can provide the proof. Why didn't you say anything at the time? Richard, looking defeated, finally gave up trying to lie. If you had exposed me, I would have been fired, and you would have been the hero. Sounds like a win-win for you. Because that wouldn't solve the root problem. The root problem, Richard, is there something you want to say to me? Your hostility is different from everyone else's. Fine, you win. Richard sighed and leaned against the wall. You went to SEO Yuku in middle school, right? Yeah, I did. Wait, you were there too. Yes, I was. And I was always second to you. The cram school we attended had mock exams where students from all over the country competed. Even if we weren't in the same classroom, being at the top of the mock exams made you a known figure. I was always top of my class, but I could never beat Robert Taylor in the mock exams. At home and at school, you were always my biggest frustration. I even saw you at a cram school camp once. You were always asking the teacher questions right after class. I respected you back then. I didn't know that. Then I joined this company and met you again, expecting you to be the brilliant person I admired. But you were a disappointment. The person I once looked up to had let me down. I resented the effort I put in back then, always being second to you, feeling inferior. So I took pleasure in looking down on you, thinking it made me superior. I see. I'm sorry I didn't notice how you felt. Don't apologize. It makes me feel even worse. I wanted to compete with you fairly this time, but all I did was sabotage you. But you were still the same as back then, much more competent than me. It wasn't even a contest. Richard had a resigned look and said he would confess the incident to his supervisor. Maybe becoming a sidelined employee like you and working my way up again will make me stronger. From the next month, Richard, as he had declared, took on mostly menial tasks. But his diligence and efficiency turned out to be a help to everyone. I shared this story with Margaret at the hot spring facility. Since then, we've been going to the hot springs together on weekends. When I said, it's a small world, working at the same company as someone from the same cram school, Margaret puffed her cheeks, looking sulky. What's wrong? Do you still not remember? I also went to the same cram school as you, and we were even in the same class. What I couldn't help but shout in surprise at her sudden revelation. So that's why I felt like I had seen her somewhere before. We had met in the past. She asked, do you remember when I told you I was bullied for being fat and ugly, but someone helped me change? Yeah, that someone was you, Robert. Me, I asked, surprised. You told the bullies to stop, but it was lame since you were the top student. They couldn't say anything back, and the bullying stopped. I admired you from that moment. I wanted to be like you, so I started studying hard and dieting. Wow, I didn't know, I said. Now that she mentioned it, I recall the time when there was bullying in the classroom, and I stopped it because it was disrupting my study time. So that girl was Margaret. That's why you knew I was good at studying back then. Yes, I worked hard to get your attention. Then, through some connections, I found out you were the president's son. Here, I figured you'd join the company, so I did everything I could to get hired here too. I worked hard, hoping to stand shoulder to shoulder with you, and ended up getting promoted quickly. That's impressive. More than me, you were my motivation. But when I finally met you, you were in such a surprising position. A lot has happened. I know, but I won't let anyone say you can't do your job anymore. You're the star of our new project. Just as Margaret said, our project was officially approved and moved into product development. I became a key member of the project, teaching the development team how to create the app and developing the system myself, keeping me very busy. It's all thanks to you, Margaret. Thank you. I've always wanted to thank you too. I'm glad I could be of help. I really appreciate it. Lately, my relationship with my father has been improving. I guess it's because our project and my programming skills have been properly recognized. I'm happy to hear things are better with your parents. Well, what is it? My father, for some reason, wants me to invite you over to our house. What? That means, only if you're okay with it, I'd love to come. I was surprised by Margaret's eagerness, but I was relieved she wasn't opposed to the idea. It was a bit, no, very embarrassing, but I wanted to get closer to her. If I'm going to meet your parents, I should dress appropriately. Can you help me pick out an outfit tomorrow? What? Me, of course. It's your house I'm visiting. Plus, I want to know what kind of clothes you like. Really? Yes, I want to look cute for you. I already think you look wonderful. Margaret's eyes widened, and she covered her face with both hands. Oh, that's not fair. Not fair? I was just saying what I thought. That's exactly what I mean. Honestly, it feels like a dream to know that such an amazing person has been watching me for so long. It's incredible to think that it's all because of something I did in the past. Life is full of surprises. People can change for better or worse, and no matter how tough things get or how exhausted you feel, as long as someone believes in you, you don't have to give up. Margaret has taught me that, and I want to slowly repay her for that lesson. Next time, I'll introduce her to a great hot spring facility I found. Imagining her happy face, we started planning our future together.